this is just simply us being friends. We're not going to try to even do this with a romantic route. Like, was that a discussion, or was that something you thought he just knew?
That's a great question. As much as we spoke, I don't know that we established that verbatim.
Okay.
For me, it was understood. That's how I felt. Um, and that's not to say that we couldn't have risen to other levels, but initially, that's how I would be with anybody. So I don't have an issue. I just feel like we were on different pages, and that's why in the episode, I believe I was speaking to Demetrius, but communication is so important because you never know what the other person is thinking, how they're perceiving things. So it is important to express how you feel and be very clear on what your intentions are. So,
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Book. Man, listen, I've done it again, didn't I? But listen, hey, welcome to Little Black Book 91. We're giving you guys the first live of the year. I know I'm doing it from Ghana, so excuse the get up. But I think this is a really great conversation, right? We've been talking about communicational errors on this channel for a little while, and I'll definitely do a part 2 of this. But this whole video is to say, like, people say things, but it's what they do that we have to pay attention. This young lady said that she is very much intentional and that she's all about communication. And yet when Arlette asked her a simple question, did you communicate and let him know that you just wanted to be friends first? She did not. Okay. She was unable to communicate that particular issue to him. And the reason being, I believe, is because she didn't fancy him. Okay, it's just as simple. She didn't fancy him. I think the reason why she didn't want to communicate that from the beginning is because she did not fancy him. And so everything from there stems into a place where you're having to make excuses for your behavior, right? I know a lot of people read the comments and were like, she's, bad to deal with, etc., and it probably is. But the reality of the situation is when people don't like you, when people don't fancy you, we all have bad behaviors, right? We all struggle to be able to be authentic in those conversations, right? When we don't like somebody, right? When we're not actually feeling them, when we're not attracted to them as well. But what I did not like, there's a bigger part in here which I really did not like, and I'm going to play it for you guys. It was actually a bigger issue than most people probably thought it was, and it was actually about clearing up what actually happened on the actual weekend that they spent together. Okay, she made an alluding statement that that she there were some things that happened on the weekend that caused them to have this situation that popped up, and that's what we're going to break down in the rest of this video. So stay locked, stay loaded. We're going to break down this communicational error. If you're here, little black book, you know what time it is. You don't know what it is, baby. Like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notifications of the upload. We're going to go deep, and let's get there now.
Little black book, you know what time it is. Time it is. Time it is. Time it is. Time it is.
All righty, so we're going to play a poem from around here. I want you to pay attention because this was a conversation about the weekend and what actually happened.
necessarily about how I feel. It was, I thought about this, and this is what it is. So yeah, that's kind of how it went. And feeling the way that I felt, I didn't know if this was a friendship that I could engage in or continue, from my perspective of things. So yeah, we haven't really had a conversation since then, but I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue. I just feel like we were on different pages, and that's why in the episode, I believe I was speaking to Demetrius, but communication is so important because you never know what the other person is thinking, how they're perceiving things. So it is important to express how you feel and be very clear on what your intentions are. So.
Okay. So in the moment when these activities were brought up or discussed, whatever it was, I'm not sure, you expressed to him like, oh, I move at a slower pace. It's something I'm not going to do. And then what happened? Like, I don't know. We're just confused.
Throughout the weekend, and I could understand that we were moving at different paces.
Mhm.
I do feel, and it's something that I brought up to Jason, I'm very transparent. I felt as if the fact that he brought me out, had a good time, the fact that I did not engage in certain activities, that he decided, okay, let's just be friends. So
Okay.
that was something for me. I am not that type of girl. And he shared with me that he felt as if one of his concerns was that I was too wholesome. To each his own. That's how you feel. But I am a woman of standard, and I make decisions that are best for me. And so in the conversation that we had, I expressed that. And ultimately, that's why I initially felt that's why he said what he said and made the decision that he made for us. The conversation wasn't necessarily about how I feel. It was, I thought about this and this is what it is.
So, if you didn't catch that, what she was saying was she was alluding to the fact that when they went on a date on the weekend, she actually alluded to the fact that the gentleman was trying to engage in certain activities with her, which she didn't necessarily want to engage in those activities. Now, I felt like her dropping the not activities, let me give her some grace. Maybe what she was really trying to do was like she didn't want to make it salacious, or she felt like just saying activities because she didn't want to necessarily air him out in some respect. But in doing so, I also feel like it became very nefarious and very big, very, very dark. Because when we start saying things like using euphemisms and using words as a code for something, people tend to take an idea and run with it. For instance, when she said, there were certain activities, right? There are certain activities. When that is said, that is going to cause people to go with a particular mindset. And if they say, are there certain activities, where does your mind go to automatically? If you're in the chat, you can type it in the chat. She said there were certain activities that, she wasn't trying to go there because she's a particular type of lady. Now, when I heard her drop that, I was very much concerned because I felt like that leads to a very dangerous place. Number one, we're on the internet. And number two, you're not clearing it up. And so this person here now is alluding to, as Sarah B has said, sexual things. And the problem with that is, right, that as you're starting to allude to that, it sounds like like you're saying that you are on the verge of being coerced into certain things, and you didn't want to be coerced into certain things. And so, we understand that she painted a narrative that, at that point in time, she was flown out, put up in a hotel, and maybe she felt like there might have been a bit of pressure to sleep with him, or maybe she might have read his behavior as him trying to sleep with her because he flew her out. Now, that can be a viable process and thought process too. I'm not going to be mad at that particular thought process, but I do feel like it felt a little bit nefarious because the fact that we the fact that we mentioned the word activities rather than saying he tried to kiss me and I wasn't really on it, like, you know what I mean? So that was a particular situation. Now let's go to what his actual explanation was, because he actually clears it up, and I'm so glad he did, because it was going to leave a stain on him as a man.
Yeah, that we had I had indicated that I think she might be too wholesome. It was nothing too nefarious. All right, there was on the last
how they're perceiving things. So it is important to express how you feel and be very clear on what your intentions are. So
Okay. So in the moment when these activities were brought up or discussed, whatever it was, I'm not sure. You expressed to him like, oh, I move at a slower pace. This is something I'm not going to do. And then what happened? Like, I don't know. We're just confused how you guys had a great trip and then now you're not talking.
I just want to clear the air. So the activity was nothing too nefarious. All right. There was on the last night, I asked if I could have a goodnight kiss, and I was rebuffed. So that wasn't. We're not talking about something more indiscreet than that.
Okay.
But we had I had indicated that I think she might be too wholesome we had a discussion about our sort of spiritual backgrounds and so forth, and I understood where she was coming from. But that wasn't something that was an issue for me, and she assured me that she is somebody that is adventurous in terms of, when I say wholesome, I'm talking about, can you have adventure? Are you somebody that we can have fun with? We can do things that involve risk, stuff like that, because I'm a very adventurous person. And she sort of assured me that, she's right there with me. So I was hoping that a friendship can ensue from that and communicate.
Okay, so as he cleared up, it was literally a kiss that he was asking for after the date. And I think the fact that obviously he asked for a kiss and that she went into a place of judgment rather than inquiry. And if you've heard me say that before, what I mean by that is, rather than asking more questions to clarify his position as to what he was trying to intend, she went straight to a judgment, which is never the way you want to go about things in most cases, right? Because you want to be able to understand where that person's coming from. But instead of doing that, what she ended up doing was actually creating this circus by saying there were activities and alluding to something that it actually wasn't. And so whilst I do believe that kissing can be very intimate and sexual, in this instance, he was asking for a kiss after the date as a goodbye kiss or goodnight kiss, etc., right? So then obviously he makes a statement that, he doesn't want to be somebody who is, I guess, maybe not so up stiff or so tight. It doesn't really work for him, which is fair. I'm not mad at it. And I think it makes sense. I just wish that obviously at the same time, I wish at the same time she would have been very fair enough to not drop such clangers, which can be very dangerous for many people. So that was another situation. I was like a little bit disappointed in her. And I felt like she hides behind this passive aggressiveness of a smile, that she's always smiling as if everything's okay. And yet the behavior seems to be very incongruent with that smile. There seems to be some level of, quote unquote, I don't want to say manipulation, but you could say that in terms of like trying to initiate or trying to portray that particular story. We want to also be available and open. Of course, people have different points of view and people have different ways of looking at things. But I look at the situation, I go, this doesn't sound right, right? You've made him out to be this bad person potentially, and you're pushing the idea of that to the audience with the wording you're choosing. It's very intentional. Very, very clever. Let's go then to the block situation, because I thought that was confusing. Because I felt like we didn't get the full information all the way, but we know that there was some stuff that was happening. And I think one of those things is she was blocking and unblocking. She unblocked him, then unblocked him,
Okay.
For me, it was understood. That's how I felt. And that's not to say that we couldn't have risen to other levels, but initially, that's how I would be with anybody. So maybe, we should have had a conversation more so about that at the beginning, and maybe Jason wouldn't feel the way that he felt, but yeah, we are where we are.
Okay. So when you guys were having like these conversations, talking to each other, prior to you coming out there, even when you guys went on your first date, all that stuff, was it like on a friendly vibe, or were you guys flirting? Like, how was it? To where now you guys are both like, oh, we're on two different paths. We didn't know, like we weren't seeing eye to eye on where this was going.
Oh, I'm flirting.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you're flirting, but she giving it back, or it was always just you?
Candy's so sweet that maybe sometimes it's hard to distinguish between what she's giving off as friendship vibes and what is coming off as flirty vibes. But and I think our own brains want to interpret it the way we want to perceive it, and the way we hope that it's being perceived. So, I think actually I'm being a little facetious. I think it was a healthy combination of both. It's exactly the type of communication I think you want when you're really getting to know somebody. It's this combination of we're getting to know each other, we're learning about each other, there's flirtation there. And so that was my perception of our communication.
Okay. So what led to you being blocked? You mentioned you're
blocked
now.
You.
Girl, I can show you my text message right now, because I texted you the next day. Are you mad at me? Because I saw that you unfollowed me. I saw that I was blocked on WhatsApp, text messages, and I was removed from the group chat. Now, I actually respected that level of pettiness because I was like, that is funny. That is funny. That's Candy has removed you from the group chat. I was like, all right, I respect that level of pettiness.
Candy, what happened? How did we get to this?
So now we're going to address obviously the block situation. I think this is really important as well. I think this is really an important perspective because now we're going to talk about this block and who blocked who if they didn't block and what was happening in that place. And I think this is also another insight into the way that she actually communicates. I find her to be very passive aggressive in her communicational styles, even though she says that she's very direct, or she says that she says what she wants to say. I feel like her behavior doesn't necessarily match that. And so we're going to go a little bit further into this part.
So from the conversation that we had, we were discussing a group trip. And from what Jason shared with me, I felt as if he would not be interested in being in the group trip. So there's no need to be a part of the group chat, which is what we talk about. So that is why he was removed. But I don't have an issue with you. You're not blocked. You can text me right now. You're not blocked.
All right.
So you said you texted her, "Are you mad at me?"
Maybe I'm telling tales out of school. I won't go too far into how I ascertained whether or not I was blocked or not. It did appear from my perception that I was blocked across multiple platforms, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe something happened. You know how these phones be sometimes, or how the
I don't know. My phone always works.
And if you notice something, pay attention now. Her body language always gives her away. I want you to pay attention here now. I want you to pay attention. I'm going to show you something, guys. Okay. I want to show you here. Watch her body language and her facial expression on this.
It did appear from my perception that I was blocked across multiple platforms, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe something happened. You know how these phones be sometimes, or how the
I don't know. My phone always works.
Now, if you notice very carefully, she actually doesn't shake her head. So if it was a direct mistruth, if you notice that when she agrees to something, she nods her head. For instance, when he was saying that he felt like he was in his head, she nodded her head. But when he said, obviously, about the block situation, instead of her saying, no, that's not what happened with her head, she actually doesn't. She rubs her nose and then smiles and turns slightly to the side. I think that's a telltale sign, psychologically, I guess, from a body language perspective, that she's neither confirming or denying, but it's confirming in the sense of the fact that she has that glittery smile on her face, and she rubs her nose as well. I think that's part of the inclination that this was actually a true statement. She feels uncomfortable, and she should continue on anyway.
Y'all got to tell me because my phone always works. So did you not get a reply when you sent a text? Is that what happened?
I got the little exclamation mark, like it won't go through. And then you guys reached out about doing this, and I wanted to kind of clear the air with her. So I tried to send a message on Instagram, and that didn't go through. So I was like, okay.
Now her facial expression says, "Oh, I don't know about that," but she returns back to a smile on her face, and which is quite interesting, right? So you'll notice that the smile on her face, as she does, she first goes. Almost say like it almost kind of like deny that necessarily being true, but again, she doesn't say no. So it's not a no. It's her more of a case. It's more of her first. Being of a case of actually in that position that she feels it's a little bit stretched. The truth. So she's not saying no. She's saying it's a little bit stretched. Yeah, so that's that particular aspect, right? She's not saying no; it's just a little bit stretched.
But maybe multiple platforms went down at the same time. Immediately following that conversation.
Again, multiple platforms went down at the same time. Her head drops here, so she's given us these indications again. Once more, it's still not a no that she didn't do this. It's not a no. These are telltale signs that it's not like if someone says that you be like, no, this is not the truth. You like because she's already shown us that she does yes or no's with her actual head. So, again, we're seeing it again once more. Not necessarily denial.
Candy, let me find out you just unblocked him because of this. Is that what happened?
Oh god.
Is that what happened, Candy?
When this call
because we're trying to know. He said he was blocked. He sent you a few messages that didn't go through. Did you just recently unblock him?
No, you're not blocked. I don't know if it's your service. I don't know, but you're not blocked. I don't.
Okay.
Have a
so
reason.
What was the last conversation you guys had then?
the conversation I described the day after she left, where I had indicated that maybe we should start from a place of friendship.
Okay.
And
Notice again, watch, you saw, right? Listen.
we
When he said about obviously starting off as friends, she's giving you the nod. She's letting you know. You know what I'm saying to you? She's letting you know that she agrees with that. Okay. All right. So what's actually happening in a situation is that she's letting you know again that what he's saying here is true. Which is why I'm saying to you that there are aspects of what her behavior are, which are actually telling us that she's truthful or not being truthful about something. You know.
we left it at that. And I feel like during that conversation, I did not give her a fair hearing. And I thought that was what.
Pause again. When he says he doesn't give her a fair hearing, she nods her head again. It to say it's true that yes, she felt like she didn't get a fair
Why
hearing.
perhaps there was a reaction though was the day before, because she actually caught me off guard during that conversation. Candy cut me off if you don't want me to talk about any of this, but she had indicated, so are you making the decision for us? And that gave me pause because I had to think about it, and I was just really.
She nodded her head again when he says, about cut her off, etc., etc. She's nodding her head once more again, right? She's letting you know she's involved.
I can be quite decisive, and I don't want to make the decision for two people, but I don't know any other way other than to express how I feel, and then how I feel is going to lead to an incongruity between how we think we should go forward. Then I suppose it's me making the decision, but I was kind of at a loss, and actually reflected on that in the day following that, and I was like, maybe we're just different. Maybe I didn't take the time to get to know her enough in this particular way to truly understand where she was coming from. And I said during the show, I look inward first, and I really do. And so I started thinking, damn, what did I jump the gun here a little bit? So I do apologize to Candy to the extent that I did for that, and to the extent that she did block me. Not saying you did. I would say that would be a reasonable reaction, especially if.
Again, once more, him talking about joking around the block. She doesn't shake her head to say no. Okay, doesn't shake her head, so we say no. All right. So this is really important because she's receiving the information. And again, once more, she doesn't shake her head, say no.
If your perception of how things went was different from mine from that conversation. So I appreciate the fact that I'm unblocked or never was.
I appreciate they're not blocked. Yeah. Again, it's she's showing us once more, again, that she's not saying no to the situation. She's not saying that, that she denies these situations, right? But she's rather saying almost like I'm indifferent. Okay, all right. Rather that he's indifferent to what he's saying. So again, for me personally, I think she blocked him.
I would look at it. And yes, internet, I know I'm talking too much.
You're Jason. Okay, so okay, you guys decided, or Jason, you said, we're gonna be friends, and that was it. Never again spoke again after that.
Correct.
But why? If you're gonna be friends, shouldn't the conversation continue?
Well, that's what I thought. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Okay, let's hear from Candy. Candy, let's hear from you.
So initially I felt that we had a good time throughout the weekend, and I could understand that we were moving at different paces.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel, and it's something that I brought up to Jason, I'm very transparent. I felt.
Now, I want to be very, very clear. She says, obviously, that she's very, very transparent, but actually we saw a clip where they asked about her and about her saying be intentional as were you being intentional, would you let him know that you are friends? And actually she did not let him know before the trip started that she felt like they were going to be friends. And the reason why is because she never thought that, potentially, right? That it's whatever she saw or whatever she experienced, she felt like that she felt like he wasn't the right person for her. But the reality of the situation is she also was not clear and concise. And that's the issue. She wasn't clear and concise to at least let him know that friendship wasn't going to be possible. Instead, rather, she put him on, whatever it was, whether she blocked him, whether she, put him on air or whatever, put him on timeout, whatever it was, she had that situation in a particular way, And there's a reason why I only put it on her face. It's because I was trying to highlight something. There's a reason why I'm not putting it on him, because we didn't need to put it on him. I wanted you to see her particular facial expressions. That's the reason why I put it that way. It wasn't by mistake. It's by design. I wanted to literally put it on that particular way. I didn't put it halfway by mistake. I was doing it so we can actually see her body language receiving the information from him, because his body language was him speaking, so it wasn't as important. What was important was to see how she was receiving the information and receiving what she was saying in the facial expression. So now they've put it on her solely. So it's not me. It's actually, they've put it on her solely. That's the reason why I'm saying that, because she was the one that seemingly is the cause of the issue.
Felt as if the fact that he brought me out, had a good time, the fact that I did not engage in certain activities, that he decided, okay, let's just be friends. So that was something for me. I am not that type of girl. And he shared with me that he felt as if one of his concerns was that I was too wholesome.
So now coming on to this part, it's funny because Arlette starts smiling as well when he said he thinks they're too wholesome. So maybe she agrees. You know, I think in this particular aspect as well, right? I think in this particular aspect, you know, I think from this situation, we can see the way that obviously, you know, we can see the way that obviously that she just says about, she felt like because you've flown her out, because etc. There may have been, it almost sounds like she's trying to say there may have been some entitled behavior. But the reality was she actually didn't have to accept the flowing out, because she actually suggested to him that she would drive, right? So if you felt like there could have been an entitlement from him flying you out, she wanted to drive originally. She should have stuck to just driving. That would have given her more power. I think this is really important as well to put out to say this, because like I said, it is the insinuation that's dangerous. It is not the fact that she says no. She can say no. She cannot be involved. Like he said, he's the one that even wanted to cancel it in the end anyway. But the reality is, it's the fact that she's almost kind of almost insinuating there's some nefarious behavior behind him. He wanted to fly her out and put her almost in a position where she couldn't say no, almost in a sense. But it's like, you didn't have to fly out, like she says. You could have driven there if you wanted to drive there. You accepted the proposal of him flying you out and accepted the proposal of you putting you in a hotel. So at that particular time and point, but you also did not discuss that you wanted to just be friends. And so you see him flirting with you. If you felt like it went too fast or too quick, you can discuss that. But you didn't let him know that you had a friend mindset when you started. So we are all on the same page, because we don't know this information until you have a conversation. You felt that in your own head and didn't communicate that. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So this is very, very careful. That's why I don't like the behavior. Now, the reason why I'm interpreting the body language, right, is number one, of course, I'm not a body language expert, but number two, what I would say is that she has shown us some level of baseline. When she agrees to something, she says yes. When she doesn't agree with it, she shows us a facial expression. She says no with a head shake or whatever. In that blocking situation, she actually was showing us, she never said no. She just kind of was like, that's a bit of a stretch. And then kind of said, yes to certain parts, and then said, didn't say no at certain parts. So that's why I said, I think she's probably been a bit facetious with what she's saying, you know what I mean? And so I personally think there's some bigger issues with her in the way that she wants to see life. Now, she's somebody obviously said she expects a man to be very ambitious, and I think he's a very ambitious person. He seems like he's involved in law and stuff like that as well. But the way she's gone about it feels a passive aggressiveness behind the smiles. She's not all smiles, and that's what it feels like. It's like the smiles hide the actual truth of how she actually feels. So for me, there's another aspect one more thing I want to do is also here. And she's talking about not being not being a materialistic person. But then obviously the way the question's asked, she doesn't actually answer the question effectively. But let me see if I can find the clip for you guys. If I can find that for you as well. Here we go. Yeah, it's probably just here. Here we go.
Was it? Where'd you go? What'd you do?
I was trying to make the first date right after the episode ended, and
Yeah,
I
he
knew
was.
Candy had a flight back to Charlotte, and I was doing everything in my power to get that flight moved. Let me tell you.
Candy,
Because
Candy, why
I
would you
heard-
book your flight right after the show?
Thank you.
I had something to do. It was already planned. It wasn't on me.
Okay. So obviously it didn't happen right after the show. So when was the first date?
So I actually have some cases in North Carolina, and those are actually my next cases that are coming up for trial. And so I actually had already on my schedule to go to Asheville and Hendersonville for some depositions that I was taking the next week. So I told Candy about this, and I said, you know what, I'm going through North Carolina. Why don't we meet up in Charlotte and take you out and do a date? So we did it the week following. I didn't feel like I'm very big on needing to feel desired. I didn't really feel that. I mean, I get around Candy and I'm like, man, I want to be as close to you as possible at all times as possible. She has that energy that sort of brings you in, and I got lulled into that. Now you see the face, you know, I got lulled into that, and so I was hoping that would be reciprocated to some degree. I've certainly in my past I've had things move pretty quickly. If anybody's done online dating knows, you're talking for like a week, and then by the time you meet, it's like, wow, you feel sparks.
Like
and I
you
really
feel you already know each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I wanted to feel sparks, and I know I felt the sparks, but I didn't know that she was feeling the sparks. So I said, okay, let me cool down here a bit. Why don't we start from a place?
Notice again how she's nodding her head. So when he says, I wanted to feel the sparks, notice how she keeps on nodding her head. She didn't feel the sparks. Like I said, she wasn't attracted. I don't think she was necessarily attracted to him like that per se. You know what I mean? So it's political.
Place of friendship and go from there.
Okay. Candy, let's hear from you.
Well, first, I think the planning was amazing. The things that he planned for us to do were definitely spot on with the things that I enjoy and my interests. So I definitely appreciate that. But like he's
also something I noticed also is on 2 occasions he talks about how great she is, but she never actually ever says anything great about him. If you notice, even in that thing, she says, I appreciate the planning, how great the planning was, but it's not actually about him. It's about what he did for her. And this is a prime example when I say people like you versus people that love you. People can love what you do, but they don't like you. This is a prime example of that example where someone doesn't like you, but they love what you can do. And so in that space, there's nothing to talk about what you liked about him personally. Maybe there's some qualities. We're not hearing none of those things. So this is really interesting.
said, I do feel, things were probably moving at our paces were different.
Okay.
For me, I've been in a long-term relationship. I've been hurt before. I am very conscious and aware of things that are important. And for me, if I want to be serious with somebody, I don't move at a pace that's fast. I do believe friendship should come first. Friendship is the foundation. So for me, it was, let's build a friendship. Let's get to know one another. And then let's see where we can go from there. So I do feel like we probably were different as far as Jason kind of jumping in. I don't feel like I jumped in with him when it comes to that, but
so he jumped in, but she didn't jump in. And so also with that space too, remember he flew her out. I think if you know that you don't feel that person like that, don't let them fly you out. You know what I mean? Like, don't let them spend that kind of trajectory of finances when you know that you're not really interesting like that. You're just trying to take it as friends. Then we have to behave like friends, right? Don't let someone fly you out like that, because in reality, what's going to happen is it's going to build expectations. But at the same time, you still got to charge it to the game. I always say it. You got to charge it to the game. Trust me.
that didn't mean that I maybe wouldn't have gotten there eventually. So I do feel like, us establishing let's be friends first was the right direction to go in.
Okay. But is he, like he stated, he feel like you were more so interested in what he can bring than him himself? Is there truth to that?
Not at all. Not at all. First, I didn't ask to come and be flown out. That was something that was offered to me. I did offer to drive, but ultimately, that was something that was offered to me.
Hold on.
Him himself? Is there truth to that? Is
Hold on now. Listen
he,
to this.
like
Listen
you
to this.
stated, he feel like you were more so interested in what he can bring than him himself?
And this is the last point we're going to make. So here we're seeing, if you see this aspect here, if you see this aspect here, she's asking, do you like him or do you like himself, or do you like what he can do? You know what I'm saying to you? So this is very, very, very clever terminology, right? And I'll be honest with you personally. Listen, dark arts, she just supplied it. Okay. I won't be honest with you, dark arts, she supplied it. But you see, when you've seen manipulation, you know how it looks. Some people can be manipulative, but they don't go out their way to be manipulated. Right? They're not going out to be manipulative, but when the opportunity arises, they will take it with both hands to be manipulative. Does that make sense? So she's not somebody who necessarily goes out to manipulate, but very much so she will receive it and manipulate that way. And so there are oftentimes different types of players in the game, and so that's what she actually ended up doing. So as she says, she's going to make a distinction, because what she's trying to do is remove any accountability for what happened. What she wants to do is remove any kind of criticism from herself, because in reality, she told us herself, she didn't tell him that she wanted to be friends from the beginning. She didn't tell him that she was going to be so slow and that she's a friend, that she starts off a friendship. If that was the case, maybe he would have gone, all right, you drive your car and come here, and we'll meet when we need to meet. But she did not communicate that to him, because that's part of the dark arts.
Is there truth to that?
Not at all. Not at all. First, I didn't ask to come and be flown out. That was something that was offered to me. I did offer to drive, but ultimately, that was something that was offered to me. So it was never, and it's never been in any of my situations about what somebody can give to me. Again, the question was asked, am I?
So as she said, she keeps on mentioning it. I was offered. But in reality, this doesn't make a difference. You knew from the beginning that you weren't really feeling him. Right? You were feeling him. You weren't feeling him. So you know what I mean?
High maintenance, materialistic, however you want to phrase it. And I said no, and I meant that. So in getting to know somebody, there are certain expectations that I don't have. But I do appreciate the things that Jason did as far as dinner and us going out and things like that. It's most appreciated. But it's not something that I necessarily expected. So I'm here to get to know somebody for who they are, not for what I feel like I can get out of the situation as far as materialistic, financially, money, that type of thing. That's not who I am. So.
Have you noticed again, she's okay. Again, we still haven't heard any kind of uplifting message about didn't know any uplifting message about Jason. Again, we haven't heard any good qualities about him. So in the time that you met him, there was no good qualities, nothing at all. None. No good qualities once more again. So we hear her thoughts about herself. Okay, we hear her thoughts about herself, but problem is we didn't hear the situation when it came to about whether he has any great qualities, none of those things, right? She just smiles and says, yeah, and defends herself. But no, never really hearing any great qualities about him. And to be fair, he's not complaining. So shout out to him, because he hasn't made it an issue.
Okay. So I know you said, when you're getting to know someone, building a friendship is like the main thing first. So before you went out there on this trip, was that something that was discussed between the two of you? Like, hey, this is just simply us being friends. We're not going to try to even do this with a romantic route. Like, was that a discussion, or was that something you thought he just knew?
That's a great question. As much as we spoke,
It's not a great question. It's actually not a great question. The reality of the situation is she needed time. She needed to buy herself some time. That's a great question. That's a great question. I'm so sorry. There is no great question. You know what I mean? It's not a great question because it's a simple one, right? Did you discuss friendship? Now remember, she told us she's an intentional babe. She says communication is really important to her and being intentional. And so that's a great question. It's not a great question. It's a simple one. And you just need to answer it. So did you communicate that no or yes to them? Because at that point, right, you have told us that you are intentional. And that's where you're going to get caught out. You see, manipulators going to do what manipulative people do. And if you're a manipulator yourself, if you've been a manipulator, which I've been once, I'll put my hand up, you know what they look like and you know what they sound like.
I don't know that we established that verbatim.
Okay.
For me, it was understood. That's how I felt.
So it wasn't said verbatim, but for me, that's how I felt. So where's your accountability? Where's your self-awareness? Remember, she told us she's a self-awareness babe. Remember, she told us she's a self-aware babe. Okay? Remember, she told us she is a self-aware babe. And yet, we're not hearing any self-awareness in this moment. We're like, you know what? I realize that, you know what? I wasn't intentional in this moment. I wasn't communicating that. It was in my head that I said it, but I didn't say it to you. That's something I have to learn to do better. None of that.
And that's not to say that we couldn't have risen to other levels, but initially, that's how I would be with anybody. So maybe, we maybe should have had a conversation more so about
Let's pause it right there. Oh, hold on.
that at the beginning, and maybe Jason wouldn't feel the way that he felt, but
Pause at that moment, right? She says that for her, that she is able, that she does that with everybody. She knows that she's all about friendship in the beginning. So why didn't Jason know that? Why didn't Jason know that? Why didn't Jason know at the point in time that she was able to do that? Why didn't Jason know that you are going to start from a place of friendship that he had to tell you later on, let's come from a place of friendship? Why are we now at the point where we are able to say in this place that, maybe he wouldn't have felt the way he felt? Sis, you know what I mean? So this kind of manipulation is very unique because she smiles a lot and is very, no, I mean, that's not how I behave. And it's like, it's very clever, but it's manipulative. It's as simple as that, right? It's very clever,
yeah.
But I always say this, the person being manipulated, okay, wants to be manipulated. It's just that simple. Like, unfortunately, you want to be manipulated. You want to buy into what she's selling because she has something that you want her to sell.
Yeah, we are where we are.
Okay. So when you guys were having like these conversations, talking to each other, prior to you coming out there, even when you guys went on your first date, all that stuff, was it like on a friendly vibe or were you guys flirting? Like, how was it to where now you guys are both like, oh, we're on two different paths. We didn't know, like, we weren't seeing eye to eye on where this was going.
Oh, I'm flirting.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you're flirting, but she giving it back, or it was always just you?
Candy's so sweet that maybe sometimes it's hard to distinguish between what she's giving off.
And that's the thing. She knew exactly what she was doing. So she knew exactly what she was doing in that space, right? The big old smile. And she got a pretty smile, by the way. I can't lie to you. She's hot. But the reality of the situation, she uses that. Okay. All right. She used that to her advantage. Okay. All right. So in that space, she uses her feminine wiles, her smiling, to come off as being almost innocent, like, and naive. Yet there is works underneath that can be looked at as very manipulative. And I say can because I want to give a bit of grace. You know what I mean? And in that space. But in reality, there's an undercoating of manipulation. Okay. So for in that space. So I think she could have communicated some of those things. Like I said, she told us she was self-aware. She told us that she's somebody that, is like, she always comes from a place of being friendly, but doesn't tell that person from the very beginning. You know what I mean? So again, it's not to necessarily hunt her down and be like, she's the worst human being ever. No, no, no. It's just simply a behavior that was called out. I don't think she liked him from the beginning. I don't think she liked him. If I'm honest with you, I don't think she liked him. And that's what usually, when you're not honest about not liking somebody, it then usually leads to what passive aggressive behaviors, which end up becoming manipulative, right? Like, we've all been there. Like, we've all been there in certain spaces. Men do it to women, women do it to men. This is not solely a woman thing where women only do this kind of manipulation. No, both men and women do this kind of manipulation, especially when they're not feeling somebody, especially when they're not liking somebody, especially when they don't find them attractive. Then they do certain behaviors. So I can see that also being a particular perspective as well. So it's not necessary to just call out one person and not call out the other person as well. So you know, so in that space, you know, I can see that way as well. Yeah, some people do smile when they're uncomfortable. That's also a truth as well. You know, I'm not going to say that's not also a behavior as well. It can be an uncomfortable situation for them as well. You know, and then someone said also as well, you know, that he comes on very strong, and it may be that he came off very strong. You know, it may be that he came on very strong as well. You know, so that can also be a situation in that space too. So we have to take into account that particular aspect where, you know, he came on very strong. She may have felt he came on very strong, a little bit too strong for her, which is why the kiss got denied, maybe. And then in the end, you know, they end up not being friends. Now, the parts, like I said, I think the blocking aspects are what passive aggressive behaviors. Not being true about you blocking them is where we're being passive aggressive and not being necessarily true. It seems like he did block him, you know, as well. Someone said he felt like he was talking the most. Probably was, to be honest. Probably was, actually. Probably was talking a lot, to be honest, on those dates. So, you know, that could be also an issue as well. So, yeah. But yeah, I want to leave it there. I don't want to go on too strong. You know, I don't want to go on too long, sorry, as well, because I feel like this is a very clear one. We might do a part 2 of the situation where we can do a bit more deeper work with it, because I want to do some more communicational stuff. But I do feel like, you know, he was knowing what he wanted. I felt like she was a little bit muddled up at points. You know, I feel like that, you know, that he's a very clear communicator. The reality of the situation is you are going to come on too strong for someone who doesn't like you. You're always going to come off too strong. Like you're never going to get it right because they don't like you. And that's why I'm saying to you, that when you listen to how she spoke, did she ever like him? No, because nothing she ever said gave us an indication that she ever liked him. Ever. At least with the other couple that we reviewed the other day, where they were together and then didn't make it out, and then they broke up or whatever. You can see they liked each other. At some point in time, she liked him, he liked her. In this situation, okay, we can see there's no liking, because there's been not even one word of saying, you know what, I like the fact he was like this, like that. Unfortunately, the dates kind of showed me that that wasn't where I wanted to be. There was none of that comparison. When people like you, they usually drop the, he was good, he was this, was that, but you know what happened? This happened, I didn't really like it, or whatever. What she described is why they weren't on a date again. She described about how good the date was, but never really anything about him personally. We never hear anything about him personally. We hear about how great the date was. We hear about how great a planner he was, but nothing about his personal qualities. And he actually says it on 2 separate occasions about how he liked her and what she was about. So we never really hear anything from her. So I think that's quite telling when people don't say anything about you, or don't have any comments about you in that space. You feel me? Yeah. So for me, I think in that space it was a little bit interesting to see, and I was looking and I was like, you know, I think there's a little bit more work to be done. Yeah, it's a lot. Well, I'm going to leave it there. Okay. Yes. Word for the season of the year is clarity. That's what I had as my word on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you know, our 2025 motto this year is clarity. If you are left in a kerfuzzle, in a muddle, if you find yourself confused, if you find yourself between a rock and a hard place, You need clarity. Clarity is the word in 2025. We'll be back to coaching as well in February when I finally almost got my website up and ready for you guys. So we're going to definitely get it popping for you guys as well. So don't worry. But listen, we're going to love you and leave you. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button. And those of you watching a replay, comment on the video down below. Much love, much appreciation. Ta-ra, ta-ra.